I'm probably the first real live militiaman most of you have met, so I'll try not to frighten you. You can just relax, I am not armed. The French philosopher Voltaire in 1769 said, "All generalities are false, including this one." If we can agree with Voltaire, then we must admit that we should avoid generalizing about people. There are good and bad in all groups: political, racial, religious, occupational, sexual, and yes, even militia groups. The Commonwealth Club might even have some good and bad members. The media and the government are constantly generalizing about groups, labeling all the people in one group the same, enacting laws to punish or favor an entire group, ignoring the fact that there is an infinite variety of people in every group. I'm the first to admit that there have been some very bad people who have called themselves militia or have been labeled militia by the media. As an officer of the militias of California, I'm here to tell you that we have many good, lawful, legal, responsible militias in California, with apologies to Mr. Glazer for the use of the word. Some fine examples are the Kern County Liberty Corps, the Placer County Militia, the Southern Command in San Diego, and many, many others. Over recent years, as the government grew and started pushing people around more and more, resistance and rage began to grow. Then the gross abuse of police power in Waco, Texas, and Ruby Ridge, Idaho, frightened the people and triggered the spontaneous formation of militias all over the nation. In California, the more responsible militia leaders recognized that some very undesirable extremists were being attracted to or were attempting to infiltrate the movement, just as a light draws insects. Therefore, the leaders formed a statewide organization with a mission statement and rules and regulations designed to isolate and eliminate racists, terrorists, bigots, anarchists, government haters, religious fanatics, and other extremists. Today, a recognized county unit of the militias of California must require each member to take an oath and covenant of service similar to the oath taken by government officers, and each county unit must vote to adopt and agree to abide by the authorized mission statement and rules and regulations. Some members and some units have been thrown out, and some commanders have been relieved of command for refusal to obey the rules. Our goal is to maintain a legal, lawful, responsible, quote, well-regulated militia. The militias of California are composed of men and women of all nationalities, races, and religions. Our Southern Command in San Diego even includes Mexicans whose citizenship is still pending. Their loyalty to the Constitution is their requirement. The militias of California has a legal network that advises us and keeps us legal. We support and cooperate with honest local law enforcement. However, we vigorously oppose dishonest, corrupt, and unconstitutional law enforcement and abuse of police power wherever we find it. Some of our county units have very good relationships with their local sheriffs. If the sheriff suspects an alleged militia person of violating the law, he can call on our extensive intelligence network. We know who the good guys and the bad guys are, and we know where they are, and we'll cooperate with the sheriff. We do not support lawbreakers who erroneously call themselves a militia. If they violate constitutional laws, they are not us. For example, the so-called Republic of Texas asked for our assistance as the government closed in on them. Our intelligence department investigated and found them to be lawbreakers, so we voted to turn them down. When the free men of Montana were under siege by the FBI, John Trockman, the commander of the militia of Montana, came to California on a speaking tour. He urged the militia leaders in California to stay out of Montana. He and the FBI had already agreed on a plan that would avoid violence. Besides, he said, the free men had gone over the edge and they were violating the law. Someone in the audience claimed the free men were only copying the Federal Reserve, creating money out of nothing. And Trockman answered, that may be true, but two wrongs don't make a right. Therefore, the militia leaders voted to stand down. During last winter's terrible floods over in the valley, some of our units were called up by sheriffs to patrol evacuated areas to keep out looters. You probably didn't hear about this because the media rarely publishes anything good about any militia. Late last year in San Diego, I participated in a very frank and productive meeting with law enforcement. 8 militia commanders sat across the table from 8 law enforcement leaders: sheriffs, police, FBI, BATF, and Border Patrol, which is really big in San Diego. Each officer said he had no objection to our militia so long as we did not engage in illegal activity. They especially warned us about explosives. The sheriff said we were getting a bad rap from the media, just as law enforcement gets when the media finds a bad cop. He cautioned us to get rid of our bad actors, just as he must constantly root out bad cops. The meeting was very cordial. You're probably wondering what motivates a rational, reasonable person to join a militia. Typically, he is a person who feels we are losing our constitutional republic. National Socialism, which is a form of fascism, is taking over our country steadily, relentlessly, and inexorably in violation of our Constitution. The takeover is accelerating, and our elected representatives can't or won't stop it. We feel we're losing our rights and freedoms step by step. We see laws and regulations multiplying exponentially. In addition to state regulations, federal agencies alone publish over 200 pages of new regulations in the Federal Register every business day. These regulations, issued by unelected, unaccountable bureaucrats, have the force of law if not canceled by Congress within 30 days. Congress does not have the time to read 200 pages a day. So therefore, the whole system is totally out of control. The constitutional principle of the separation of powers is violated daily as unelected bureaucrats write their own laws and enforce them, often at gunpoint. Today, 46 federal agencies now have agents carrying guns with authority to arrest citizens for violating any one of thousands of regulations none of us have ever heard of. This growing federal police force is superseding local law enforcement and is not responsible to local citizens. Peaceful citizens are being searched and property seized without warrants in violation of the Constitution. Worst of all, we see federal officers murdering innocent, peaceful citizens, and no one is punished. There are many more documented instances of abuse which we don't have time to list today. We see decisions of juries being appealed, reversed, or modified by lawyers and judges. If they fail to convict a citizen of a politically incorrect crime in a state court, they try him again in a federal court for the same alleged crime, violating the constitutional prohibition of double jeopardy. We see our sovereign nation and our military being turned over to the United Nations through complex treaties with treasonous provisions that, in our opinion, violate our Constitution. Our Constitution is written in plain English. We don't need a law professor to explain it to us. Albert Einstein said, "The strength of the Constitution lies entirely in the willingness of the citizens to support and adopt it, to support and defend it. Without that willingness, it is just a piece of paper." The primary purpose of the militias of California is to support and defend the constitutions of the United States and the state of California by providing a credible threat to unconstitutional abuse of government power. We think we have already achieved the position of credible threat. Consider how carefully the FBI handled the free men of Montana. They knew if they went in with guns blazing, as the BATF did in